He was 70 years old, sitting across from a Rolling Stone reporter. And after more than 2 decades of tabloid theories, wild rumors, and blood-vial legends, he finally said it out loud. Not with anger, not with regret, but with a calm, quiet clarity that made the whole thing hit harder than anyone expected. That was one of the greatest times of my life. She and I are still very, very close friends. And that was the one that ended up being a really civilized breakup. We simply split up because our lifestyles were so different. That was Billy Bob Thornton in November 2025, speaking to Rolling Stone while promoting the record-breaking 2nd season of his Paramount Plus hit, Landman. And in one sentence, he put to rest 22 years of gossip, myth, and manufactured drama. But here is the thing. That sentence doesn't fully tell the story. Because the reason he and Angelina Jolie went their separate ways isn't just about schedules or geography. It runs deeper than that. It touches on anxiety, identity, self-worth, and what happens when 2 people grow in completely opposite directions at the exact same time. This is that story. And it starts not in Hollywood, not in Las Vegas, and not on a movie set. It starts with a boy from Arkansas who never really believed he deserved to be in the room. Before we can understand why the marriage ended, we have to understand the man inside it. Billy Bob Thornton was born on August 4, 1955, in Hot Springs, Arkansas. He grew up in a world that most people would not recognize. His family moved constantly, Alpine, Malvin, Mount Holly, never staying long enough to build roots. His father died when Billy Bob was only 19. His mother quietly mailed him $20 bills in envelopes while he was trying to make it as an actor in Los Angeles, because her new husband kept a tight grip on their money. He came to LA in 1981 with a typewriter, a childhood friend, and around $500. After rent, they were surviving on roughly $6 a week. He once described a powdered donut and a cup of rum as a feast. He waited tables, did telemarketing, managed fast food, anything to stay alive while the doors to Hollywood stayed locked. By 1984, his body gave out. He ended up in the hospital, not from heart disease as doctors first feared, but from malnutrition. He had been eating nothing but potatoes for weeks. His potassium had dropped to dangerous levels. He came that close to dying, not from violence or tragedy, but from hunger and refusal to quit. And still, he stayed. He struggled with severe dyslexia his whole life, though no one put a name on it when he was a kid. Teachers called him lazy. Classmates called him slow. He developed serious anxiety and obsessive habits that never fully left him, a fear of antique furniture, a discomfort with heavy silver cutlery, a strange phobia tied to the facial hair of Benjamin Disraeli. On film sets, Hugh Grant would deliberately point out old antiques just to watch him flinch. It was not funny to the person living it. Then in October 1988, his younger brother Jimmy Don died suddenly at 30 years old, collapsing at work in San Francisco from an undiagnosed heart condition. Jimmy was a musician too, a guitarist and banjo player who never got to record his own album. For Billy Bob, that loss broke something permanently. He has said ever since that he is half happy and half sad at any given moment. He still opens and closes every concert with Jimmy's songs. This is the man who walked onto the set of Pushing Tin in 1999. A man shaped by poverty, loss, anxiety, and a lifetime of being told he was not enough. The year was 1999. Billy Bob Thornton had just won an Oscar for Sling Blade, the film he wrote, directed, and starred in on a budget of just over $1 million. The same film he had spent nearly a decade building in his mind before a single frame was shot. The win had changed everything. Overnight, he became someone Hollywood had to take seriously. He was cast in Pushing Tin alongside John Cusack and Cate Blanchett. And then there was his co-star, a 23-year-old actress who had already won a Golden Globe and was on her way to her first Academy Award. Her name was Angelina Jolie. At the time, Billy Bob was engaged to actress Laura Dern. They had been together for 3 years. Their relationship had looked rock solid to people on the outside. Laura had trusted him completely. She left home to film a movie and expected to come back to the same life she had left. She did not. What happened on the set of Pushing Tin is well documented. The chemistry between Billy Bob and Angelina was immediate. The long filming days brought them close, and something shifted between them that neither of them seemed able to stop. Within months of finishing the film, they had made a decision that would stun almost everyone who knew them. Laura Dern found out the same way the rest of the world did. Through headlines. She later told ABC News that she had left home to make a movie and returned to find that her boyfriend had married someone else. He never called. He never explained. For her, It ended like a sudden death. No warning, no closure, no conversation. That is a part of the story that deserves to be said plainly. However beautiful the love between Billy Bob and Angelina may have been, it started in a way that left a real person in real pain. And that pain was public, which made it worse. On May 5, 2000, Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie got married at the Little Church of the West on the Las Vegas Strip. It was a Friday afternoon. The ceremony lasted about 20 minutes. They wore faded denim jeans. It was his 5th marriage and her 2nd. And then the world absolutely lost its mind. The tabloids could not get enough of them. The age gap was 20 years exactly. The matching tattoos. The infamous blood vials, which, for the record, were never vials at all. Angelina had bought 2 small lockets, the kind you keep a photo in, and they each placed 1 tiny drop of blood inside as a private romantic gesture. By the time the media finished with it, the story had them wearing glass tubes around their necks and performing gothic rituals in the dark. At the 2000 Academy Awards, Angelina won Best Supporting Actress for Girl, Interrupted, and kissed Billy Bob on stage in front of the entire world. They held hands everywhere. They whispered to each other at big events. They made no apology for how in love they were. And for a while, it was real. Both of them have said so, many times, without contradiction. But the world they were living in was not built for quiet people. And Billy Bob Thornton has never been a man who wanted to live loudly. He has lived with agoraphobia for much of his adult life, a genuine anxiety condition that makes public spaces feel suffocating and unpredictable. Going out meant paparazzi. Going anywhere meant being watched, photographed, and discussed. He described it himself in a 2025 Rolling Stone interview. When they got together, the media interest in celebrity couples became overwhelming. They could not go anywhere without it becoming an event. He was already anxious by nature. This made everything worse. Meanwhile, Angelina was moving in a completely different direction. In 2001, she became a goodwill ambassador for the United Nations. She began traveling to places most people only read about: refugee camps in Kenya, orphanages in Cambodia, war zones across multiple continents. Her sense of purpose was expanding beyond Hollywood, beyond red carpets, beyond anything a film career could contain. She was stepping into the world. He was trying to stay out of it. This is the part that Billy Bob has been the most honest about over the years. And it is the part that hits hardest when you understand where he came from. In a 2018 podcast interview with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, he put it plainly. He said he and Angelina had a great time together. He said he remembered it fondly. And then he said this: we just had different lifestyles. Hers is a global lifestyle and mine is an agoraphobic lifestyle. So that is really the only reason we are probably not still together. An agoraphobic lifestyle. Not a career conflict. Not a personality clash. Not a betrayal. A man who is genuinely afraid of the world, married to a woman who was becoming one of its most visible citizens. But there is another layer to this that he has also admitted publicly, and it is the layer that feels most human. As Angelina's fame grew, Billy Bob started to feel smaller next to it. Not because she made him feel that way, but because other people did. He has said that people told him, to his face, that he did not deserve her. That he was not good enough for her. That he was out of his league. And for a man who had spent his entire life battling the feeling of not being enough, a kid called lazy and slow in school, an actor rejected for not being Southern enough despite actually being from Arkansas, a person who survived on $6 a week while Hollywood kept saying no, those words did not bounce off. They sank in. He has talked in several interviews about living with OCD and anxiety and how those conditions shape the way he processes everything, including his own worth. He described it as hiding while she shined. Like being stuck in the dark while she moved through the light. And then in early 2002, a detail emerged that made the distance between them impossible to ignore. They had visited an orphanage in Cambodia together and announced the adoption of a boy named Maddox. But when the paperwork was filed, Angelina had filed it as a single parent. 3 months later, they separated. Their divorce was finalized on May 27, 2003. What happened next surprised almost everyone. Because there was no war. No ugly public statements. No competing narratives. No dragging each other through interviews. Billy Bob covered his Angelina tattoo in 2003, replacing it with an angel and the word peace, and explained it not as erasure but as acceptance. He said it was his way of saying no hard feelings. That the relationship had served a purpose in both their lives. And when it ended cleanly. In the years that followed, The contrast with Angelina's next major relationship became impossible to miss. Her highly publicized and deeply painful legal battle with Brad Pitt, which began with their 2016 separation and dragged through the courts for years, stood in direct opposition to how she and Billy Bob had handled things. The same woman. Two completely different endings. And Billy Bob has consistently said that speaks to the nature of what they had. It was not broken by hate. It was ended by honesty. He has also been clear that they stayed genuinely close. Not in the performative way celebrities sometimes claim. He told Rolling Stone in November 2025 that they are still very, very close friends. That he looks at that time as one of the greatest periods of his life. He was asked about the natural insecurity he felt in relation to her, and he acknowledged it freely, saying he probably would have said the same thing about any woman, because that kind of self-doubt had always lived inside him. The story of Billy Bob Thornton in 2025 and 2026 is not the story of a man haunted by the past. It is the story of a man who finally found the version of life that fits him. He has been with his sixth wife, Connie Angland, since 2014. By all accounts, it is quiet, stable, and private, exactly the life he always needed. He has children he is devoted to. He has music he plays without apology. He has the band he loves. And now, for the first time in years, he has a television role that has made a whole new generation pay attention. Landman premiered on Paramount Plus in November 2024, created by Taylor Sheridan, who wrote the role of Tommy Norris specifically for Billy Bob after conversations on the set of the Yellowstone prequel 1883. The show, a gritty drama set in the West Texas oil business, immediately became a phenomenon. Its Season 2 premiere in November 2025 broke records for the platform, pulling in 9.2 million viewers in its first 2 days. That number outperformed the Season 1 premiere by 262%. It became the most-watched original series premiere in Paramount Plus history. Thornton told Parade that having a role written specifically for him felt like finding something that fit like a glove. At 70 years old, he described himself as grateful that success had come to him in stages rather than all at once. He said he had not been ready for what early fame might have done to him. The Season 2 finale brought dramatic story turns for his character Tommy Norris, fired as president of MTEX Oil by Demi Moore's character in a tense confrontation. Rumors circulated online that Thornton might be leaving the show entirely. His response was characteristically direct. He called the speculation AI-generated nonsense and made clear he was going nowhere. He had signed on for 4 or 5 seasons and intended to honor that. Season 3 was greenlit in December 2025 and is set to begin filming in spring 2026. Here is what makes this story different from most celebrity divorce stories. Most of them end with blame. With accusations. With a version of events where someone is the villain and someone is the victim. The public is invited to pick sides, and both sides usually spend years trying to win. Billy Bob and Angelina never did that. What they offered instead is something rarer and, in some ways, more honest. Two people who were genuinely in love, who were genuinely incompatible at the level of how they wanted to live, and who chose to admit that rather than destroy each other proving otherwise. He is agoraphobic and she is global. He wanted stillness and she was running toward the entire world. He grew smaller in the spotlight and she was built for it. Neither of those things is a flaw. They are just two completely different people who happen to fall hard for each other at the wrong moment in the wrong direction. And 22 years later, they are still friends. He still calls it one of the greatest times of his life. She has gone on record multiple times saying positive things about him. In a world where most Hollywood divorces become wars, that is almost impossible. And it tells you something important about both of them, not just about who they were together, but about who they each chose to be after. Billy Bob Thornton spent his whole life being told he was not enough. Not Southern enough. Not handsome enough. Not worthy enough for the woman he loved. And rather than let any of that define him, he kept writing his own story, slowly, stubbornly, and in his own time. At 70 years old, with a record-breaking television show, a stable marriage, and the peace he always chased, it turns out he was always enough. He just needed to stop listening to the people who said otherwise.